So I'm going to reverse a little bit because I'm not sure who was born after 2001 or anything like that, but 2001 reverse for me, I was in ninth grade. And there was two big things that happened in my life in 2001, and obviously one was September 11th, but the other one was every Sunday going to school with a blank VHS tape because I didn't have HBO and giving it to my friend to tape Band of Brothers so I could watch it the next day. And after that, I went and served. I went to Iraq, Afghanistan as a U.S. Marine, started my own nonprofit, started writing books about World War II. But for someone like me who had ADD in school, didn't like reading, what really brought to me veteran sacrifice was motion picture, the silver screen movies. That's what really captured it. And for these actors, and they always underline themselves, hey, I'm just an actor, but I want to let them know that sometimes it's what they do that influences generations to come to serve in the military, because I didn't know about the sacrifice of some of these veterans in the Battle of the Bulge or in Normandy until I saw it in TV in front of me. For a guy like me and girls and guys like you who are very active and in the military, sometimes we need to see it right in front of our face. That being said, I'm going to go down the row here, and I'd like for our panel to discuss who they played in the miniseries. Did you ever meet that actual veteran in person, and what was it like to portray that particular World War II veteran?
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you first for having us. I've been here a few years. It's always great to be here and celebrate the American soldier in a city like this, so thank you for having all of us. My name is James Matteo. I played Sergeant Frank Briganti in Band of Brothers. I did get a chance to, thank you. All right, thank you guys so much. I'm done. I had the honor of playing Frank and meeting Frank. Actually, the first marching orders that we got were a book about our veteran and ways you could reach out if, in fact, they were alive or a family member that you might speak to and get some information about your veteran. Obviously, we all read the book and we were educating ourselves as much as we can. My packet had pictures and photos of Frank, young and old, his pre-war, his post-war, and also had his contact info. I was too afraid to call him because we were told to be careful. We might be opening up some old wounds, so I did not call him. And I sent him a letter, and I put my number on the bottom, and then he called me one day, went right after boot camp, I believe, he called me. Thankfully, he did. I tell the story all the time because I didn't know if he smoked or not. So I was planning on smoking cigarettes, and I was planning on just, playing totally different. Thank God I met him because he was like, no, I was always buttoned up. I was always washing my hands, brushing my teeth. My hair was always good, and I didn't touch a cigarette, touch booze. It's like, all right, it's great to know, because I was going the opposite. But he was a really, really good guy, and, I known him, until he passed away in 2013. Mine and Frank's relationship was quite different because I didn't poke him for questions about the war. His friendship meant more to me than anything. And my relationship with him, hey, how you feeling? Need anything? Can I get you anything? I would allow him to speak when he wanted to about the war and about the events that happened. The big thing about it, and I think these guys will agree with, anytime you ask your veteran for information about himself, they immediately started talking about the guy to the left or the right of them. They never talked about themselves. They were just always talking about their brothers. So that was my introduction to meeting Frank.
Hello, I'm Ross McCall. I play Joe Liebgott. Don't adjust any hearing. I am British, so don't.
I was going to say, I didn't know you were British.
With my dodgy London accent. Just what Jim was saying here. Liebgott passed away before we started shooting the show, and so we're talking early 2000s. It was pre-internet, really. So any advice we were getting or any research we were getting was pretty slim for me. And I was very jealous of these guys. They were getting like portfolios full of what their men had done and family pictures and letters and all sorts. I got a manila envelope with one picture, and it was the same picture that was from Band of Brothers, the book. And I was like, well, I could have got that myself. I didn't need you to blow it up for me. However, it actually turned out to work in my favor because, as Jim just said here, these gentlemen never spoke about themselves. or very rarely. And one of the greatest things that this show has, some of the greatest things that I hear that this show has done is it enabled family members to open up. It enabled grandpa or dad to actually start talking about what they went through during World War II. And so for me, I knew that I could rely on the men. So I would go to Mr. Picante, I would go to Babe, I'd go to Mr. Garnier, I'd go to Bull, and say, what do you got? Because I got nothing. Production just gave me one picture. And the advice I got and the helpfulness and the information was just gold. They would tell me who he was as a man, they'd tell me who he was as a friend, they'd tell me who he was as a brother. And so for me, I just got this plethora of information. I can't believe I just used plethora in a sentence, but I'm proud of myself.
We can't either.
Thanks, buddy. And so I had this vast amount of information now that I could use to bring this character to life. I was doing an interview this morning, and I actually sort of welled up a little bit. I teared up a little bit because it was very truthful from where I was coming from. But one of the greatest honors for me doing this show was becoming friends with the veterans. And they would kind of look at me like I was Liebgard, and they would speak to me like I was their friend Joe. And they would call me Joe, and they would say, yeah, you remind me of him. And all of a sudden, I sort of started realizing this legacy of this show and the importance that we had on our shoulders was to keep this story alive for them somewhat. I know you were saying earlier, yeah, we are just a bunch of actors who wear makeup and learn our lines and go off and do 1,000 other TV shows. But Band of Brothers, we knew, was so important to keep this legacy of Easy Company and these men alive. And so when I would hear from the other veterans that I reminded them of their brother, their friend, their soldier in arms, it just gave me so much pride. And it's something I've carried now for 23 years. I'm still talking about this show more than any other show I've ever done. And that's because Liebgard became a part of me. I became a part of him, I think. There was a reason I wore his dog tags for a long, long time after the show ended. It wasn't out of ego. It wasn't out of, me pretending to be something I wasn't. It was because I was now having the legacy of this man. And I got to know him through the vets. So that was, it turned out to be such a honest pleasure for me to actually not have the information given by Hollywood producers and actually get it from the guys themselves.
Awesome.
Yep. Plethora.
I won't be using big words like plethora. Hi guys, Michael Kudlitz. I played Denver Randleman, Bull, as some of his friends knew him. I had a sort of an in-between story. I was told by the office that Mr. Randleman had passed away. No one's been in contact with him, but we do have contact information from one of his better friends, Les Hashi. So we'll give you his number and you can talk to him and see if you can get any information. I called Les, which is a pretty easy call. As Jimmy said, I can't imagine having to call the actual vet. I don't even know how that conversation would start. So I was given Lester's information, called Les up, and just started asking him questions. What was it like? What was he like? What was your time like with him? Is there any characteristics or anything that you remember of him that really stuck in your mind? So he went on for about 15 or 20 minutes telling stories, and in the end he said, why don't you just call him and talk to him about this? So now I'm like, this guy doesn't know his best friend has passed away. This is really awkward. I'm the one who's going to tell him, and I've just met him 15 minutes ago. I said, well, sir, the office, and I'm trying to be as judicious as judicious, it's almost. So I get, all right.
I got one coming. I got a big word coming. Real big word coming. I'm gonna
Let's
hold
see
it.
if you can spell it. That's the key.
Trying to be as judicious as possible. And so I say to him, the office has been having trouble getting in touch with him. I literally decide I'm not the guy who's going to be
it's funny.
delivering this message. He says, well, let me give you his number. I just talked to him yesterday. I went, okay. So I take the number, and then I do not call Mr. Randleman first. I call the office. I say, Denver's alive, living in Texarkana, and I have his phone number. Should I call him first, or do you guys want to reach out? And they're like, no, we'll reach out. We'll get back to you. So they reach out to Mr. Randleman and his family. They do get back to me within a couple of days. They say, absolutely, he'd love to talk to you. I said, oh, fantastic. It's sort of like been these men who have not really spoken about this in many, many years, some not at all. Dialed the number, I don't know if you had this experience, dialed almost the full number like 3 or 4 times. And was hung up. I can't do this. I have to do this. Well, he said that they'd love to hear from me. Okay, so call up. I get his wife, Vera, lovely, lovely lady. Oh, hello. Well, yes, we've been expecting your call. Would you like to talk to Dev? That would be fantastic. Denver gets on the phone. He's like, hello. I said, hello, sir. I'm Michael Cudlitz. I'm the actor who's going to be portraying you in the TV version of the book. And he says, okay. Okay, so yes, and in the back of my mind, how was the war? All this other stuff. Like, don't say that. That's stupid. That's ridiculous. That's crazy. Stop. So I said, can you tell me a little bit about your experience in boot camp? He said, it was all right. So I'm starting to piece together what I hear from Lester, who had told me he didn't really talk much and he didn't really trust anyone at first. So I started applying what Lester had said to Mr. Randleman, and this went on for about 5 or 6 minutes of just one-word answers. And I said, okay, sir, thank you very much. This is fantastic. It was really, really great to talk to you. I'm going to probably call back in a couple of days when I have some other questions, more specific things I'd like to ask you about. But for now, that's it. And he says, do you want to talk to Vera? I said, sure, that'd be great. So Vera gets on the phone, and she says, well, Deb doesn't talk much to strangers. I said, okay, I understand that, but it was really nice meeting you guys. I'm probably going to call back in a couple of days, and maybe we can just sort of further this along. And she says, well, do you have anything you'd like to talk to me about? And I said, well, could you tell me about your husband? And we proceeded to have the most amazing hour-and-a-half conversation about Mr. Randleman and about their life together and about their children and about where they met and how they met. And I realized, as Ross had just said, that you get more from someone who knows you or the person you're portraying than you do from the person. Because we have our perception of who we are. Your perception of who you are is not who you are. How other people see you is how you are. I needed to portray, we all needed to portray how these other men saw them, because that's how they existed in the world. So I got more information from his wife and from his friends than I ever got from him initially in order to do the work that I had to do. Over time, that relationship built and really built. They became incredibly close to our family. Denver purchased miniature, he wound up working for Caterpillar excavation equipment company. And he bought, I have twins, and he bought my twins. He got an employee discount, Rira told me. He said that's why he was so excited about it. He bought them replicas of all the Caterpillar equipment that they had, and he bought them for their birthdays and for Christmas, and he had pre-ordered for like 5 years ahead for 2 of each of all the full line of equipment for the kids. We became incredibly close over the years until his passing, and it was only 3 years that we were together. But I will cherish his memory and honor his memory for the rest of my life, because we experienced something that no one will experience, and we carry the memory of those men with us every day.
You know, I'm hearing these gentlemen talk about the World War II veterans they played. Reminds me of the veterans I wrote about in my 2 books. And because I would interview the veteran, take them back to the battlefield in Europe they served on, but then I would be hearing more stories from their sons or daughters or their wives that they didn't tell me after I had already written their story. So it's so true that we need to acknowledge who we portray ourselves to and what importance we can take out of that. That being said, it actually brings me back to episode 1 of Band of Brothers. There's always 2 sides of every story. I've interviewed veterans from the same platoon, from the same company, of different divisions, and sometimes people have different things to say. It's no secret in episode 1 they portray Captain Sobel to be this real SOB, hard on his guys, but I also heard from other guys at Easy Company that he helped build Easy Company, and he wasn't as bad as the first episode had shown. What's your guys' history, or what you heard through the grapevine on Captain Sobel in particular? Naturally, he passed away way before the miniseries came out. I know his family had seen the episode. What's the underground saying about Captain Sobel, his family, and for those veterans that you played that survived, did they say anything good about him?
Well, it's both. It's both of what you said. Some said he was a real son of a gun and hard on them, but he molded them into the men that they were. And later on, I think they respected that, because they became this elite unit. Obviously, Sobel had a hard ending to his life. I'm sure some of you already know he tried to commit suicide and died in a Veterans Hospital. So, but I do know that later on in life, now his family has been showing up to the reunions, which has been great, and so that's good to hear. But yeah, we've heard that Sobel was a real son of a bitch, but has also molded them to who they are.
I think the thing is, something I often talk about is, look, with Hollywood, which is a much judged place, understandably, but there are some liberties that get taken when you are creating a TV show or a movie. And we've talked about Band of Brothers a lot, and in the fact that it's Easy Company, and we know there were many companies. But this particular book was based on Easy, and that's what the show was about. But within that, you do have to have in context, there are so many men that you can talk about, and if you talked about every single man, you'd have a 52-episode show. And that's just, I know we would all watch it, but there are other people in the world you have to, try and bring in and watch this piece of entertainment. So there are some Hollywood liberties that have taken place throughout, time, including our show. There's a few little tweaks that perhaps weren't quite on the money. Perhaps we found out later on that maybe wasn't as true as this was and this was. With Sobel, just what Jim's saying, I've heard I've heard he was a tough man, but the men that we've spoken to over the years have said Easy Company would not be Easy Company without Sonny. And whether that is just tough love, whether that's, just to prove something against a man that's, maybe slighted in a way by Julio, whatever that took, the fact that the men could be humble and proud enough to say, we would not be the company that we are without this man, I think you have to look at that in such a way. And, David came in and did a phenomenal job with that character. I think everybody watches it and really gets a glimpse of loosely who that man was. I think it was a pretty fair representation from what I've heard throughout the days. So.
And I'd say the same. He says that wouldn't be the company they were if it weren't so Sobel. A lot of the men that even did not care for him at all say they wouldn't be alive if it weren't for Sobel.
Speaks volumes.
Yeah, there's also, you had a bunch of his men just wouldn't go into battle with him. He trained them. Oh boy, did he ever train them, but they didn't feel like he was battlefield ready or a leader on the battlefield.
Also, it's funny because I talk about the mini boot camp that we went through. We always preface that with mini actor boot camp. We try to minimize it as much as possible so that when we're talking about it, we're not trying to say that we went through some kind of boot camp and we're like soldiers now. We didn't. We went through an actor's boot camp and got exposed to as many things as possible in a very short amount of time. The only brutal thing about it for us is we couldn't get thrown out. So however horrible we were, however much anyone failed at one thing or many things, you were there for the entire time. And I just, I think that, you go through something like that together. I totally lost my train of thought, so I'm vamping now till I get my train of thought. What was I talking about?
Keep going, buddy.
What was I talking about?
This is good.
I know it was
Talking
Sobel,
about
Sobel related.
We're talking about the men saying that their lives were saved by it.
Yeah, I don't know. I lost it.
Good talk.
It was a
This is
great,
time for me, the moderator, to do
great
my
point
job.
to make. I just admit it. So that's why I've been married for 37 years. Just admit when you're wrong, fellas.
Given the mini boot camp you did, and then training, filming on set and filming the battles on a setting, with whatever it was, cardboard houses or actual brick buildings. Did you ever go back to those actual battlefields, Bastogne, the Foxholes, Bojac, Hagenau, Germany, the Eagle's Nest? Did you ever go back to actually see their real footsteps?
Well, we've done these tours quite a bit, and we do the Band of Brothers tour with the World War II Museum, and they're really, truly fantastic. I've met a few of you passing through there. Yeah, we have.
That's where we first met.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Jeep Military did something in 2006 where they took back all the Band of Brothers guys to the battlefields. They took them to Eindhoven, Foy, Market Garden, Bastogne, the Bojac Woods, and then and it was a bus full of the original Easy Company, man. You had Bill, you had Babe, you had Frank, you had Compton, you had Lipton, you had Seworth. I mean, you just had everybody on there. Paul,
Actually, you know what?
Paul
Let me
Rogers.
back up. I knew you did the tours. What I guess I was looking for was, what was it actually like to see the trees? What was it like to see what they actually did after you had already portrayed?
From a production standpoint, walking into like the Bojac Woods or walking into the dike, it was 100% accurate from what we
Wow.
saw.
I've said that often. With our set, we shot it in a place called Hatfield, which is like an old air base, disused air base in North London. And it's on acres and acres of land. And when you do a show like Band of Brothers, you are working with the best of the best in that industry, okay? You have Mr. Spielberg, Mr. Hanks at the helm. You just have the best production designers, best costumers, best everybody. You're dealing with people who know what they're doing. This setting that they would set up within these acres of Hatfield, you would literally have Carentan built on one side. You'd walk under an arch, over a little bridge, and you'd be in Eindhoven. Then you'd walk across and you'd be in the Bojacs. And it was this incredible feat of movie making that everything was unbelievably realistic. And when you were saying like cardboard houses and stuff, everything was brick and mortar. You know, there was some wood in there, but a lot of concrete was poured.
Yeah.
There were things that were put up there. These buildings were real. And then they'd blow the S out of them. And, you know, we'd move on to the next episode and they would rebuild, and all of a sudden we'd have we'd be in Germany on the same spot. You know, we'd be in Hagenau on the same spot as Carentan. So everything changed. And the first time I went to Europe, into Normandy especially, and when I went to even Eindhoven, where the crossroads are, and when I went to the Beaux-Arts for the first time, and Jim's right, we actually go there about 2-3 times a year. We go and pay our respects and go and do whatever we have to do to keep his memory alive and his legacy alive. And we go and we see these places, and it doesn't get dull, it doesn't wear down. But the first time I stepped into the Beaux-Arts, I could not believe it was like I was back on set.
Wow.
Now bear in mind, in our show, the Beaux-Arts was built inside an aircraft hangar. So it was all indoors. And they put the diggers outside, and they brought in forestry from outside, and it was like 10 foot tall, you remember? And around the perimeter, so it was let's say this is the hangar, and around the perimeter, maybe, a meter and a half that you could walk around. There were ladders to take you up. There were real trees within this dirt compound they brought in. There were real wildlife. So you'd be like, quick, a badger. I'm not kidding. There were like wildlife coming at you. And we were up there digging our foxholes and getting ready for the shoot. And so the first time I saw it, it absolutely blew my mind. Wow. I couldn't believe how detailed it was. Our production designers all flew out, and they all went and studied everywhere that we were going to be. And even what's episode 2? Breakcourt Manor.
Oh, yeah.
So, you go to Breakcourt. We go see Charles, who owns Breakcourt, twice a year now, and it's just like for like. It's absolutely unbelievable how they did it.
Yeah.
I think that answers.
That's awesome. It's good to know.
What else you got?
Just means when I was in 9th grade, it was actually really what I was looking at was exactly what it was like.
Yeah.
So, the experiences I've had personally with bringing a veteran back over there, and you guys went with Easy Company, is mixed. I've seen veterans in this room who I've brought back break down crying at the cemeteries. What's it like going back to the cemeteries with guys from Easy Company, and what memories did they bring back from the guys whose names are on the crosses?
Well, I can't speak for that. I've walked through these cemeteries with a lot of these men, Bill, Babe, Frank, and I just step back. That's for them to sort of process. All I do know that it's a special time.
So they never shared a memory from a particular guy?
Yeah, and if it was, I think it was their memory on that land, and I'll just leave it there with them. I do remember walking into the Beaux-Arts with Easy Company and just watching them all try and figure out where they were geographically. Because they could just look down on Foy, and Foy was amazing too. Foy looks exactly like it does in the episode as well. Yeah. And you could just look down. And I remember them just sort of seeing that little house down there and kind of seeing the edge of the forest. Now, granted, the forest has been forested, so things have changed a little bit. But you saw them look and then kind of see the house down there and go, well, that would have been with Smokey Gordon. Smokey would have been in there, not, well, hell, I would have been right over here. This way I would have been, right here, right about here. Yep, this way I would. And then they would kind of have their moment, and arms would go around each other, or hug, or cry, or a laugh, a joke, and you just felt like you were on sacred ground in there, and just listening to these guys talk amongst each other. I didn't stick my head in and kind of try and, you just wouldn't do that. It's something that you wouldn't do. You just stood back and just let these guys walk into because that's a lot of them was the first time they were there ever, first time back, and they've lost a lot of good men and their friends there over and horrific conditions as well. So yeah.
I think they will have also had diverse personalities. So there are some that would really feel, very emotional. And then there were others that compartmentalized it. Time has moved on. They've raised their families. And to go back is revisiting their past, which was horrific. And, some people take that on the chin in a certain way, and other people have a real adverse reaction. But Jim's right. I mean, it was very much like, you give them their solace in that moment. It's not about us. It's not about us being around witnessing anything. It's almost like we're gonna allow you to go and do whatever you need, and we're here. We're here whenever you're ready.
There was a interesting thing that happened with the men. The more they knew us, got to know the actors, we were absolutely taken into their families. So much so that when they would start to talk and tell stories, the stories got shorter because they thought that we knew them. So they'd look to you and go, yeah, he was quiet. And you'd go, yeah. And that was it. And I think it's because they thought we knew. And in a way we did, because we weren't prying for information. It was anything that they wanted to share with us. And in the end, it wasn't even anything they wanted to share. It was just spending time with them. It just was it's just an incredible bond.
We became really good friends with the vets.
Yeah.
You know, and what Mike's saying is true. It stopped being about the show. It stopped being about the stories. It then became about, you know, we get a phone call and Babe and Bill are gonna be on the East Coast, and should we go out and see them? Yeah, great, let's go. And you know, 3 or 4 of us would go out. He'd sit down and he'd have lunch, and Babe would start singing, and then he would always try and give you something. He was always trying to give stuff away, Babe. So I was like, yeah, take my jacket, kid. I don't want your jacket.
Literally
I don't know what
gave me
you
a
want.
shirt one day.
Yeah. Yeah, take my
shirt
hat,
off his
kid.
back.
No, I don't want your hat.
Babe used to
Take-
have a bunch of money rolled up in like a rubber band.
Yeah, he was like your grandpa.
And we'd go see him, he goes, you okay, you need anything? And he pulled out the rubber band and he's, what do you want, you want anything? I'm like, no, babe, it's fine.
Yeah,
okay.
we're covered.
Yeah, we're okay, we're here for you. They were a hell of a group of men, and we had, you know, the honor of portraying these guys and spending a lot of quality time with them and getting to know them as friends and heroes, obviously. And I think at some point, like Michael said, is they started to trust. You know, I spent a lot of time with Frank. I'd go to Chicago and see him at least 2-3 times a year before his passing, and you know, Frank would still pick me up from the airport in his big, you know, it was like a Bonneville, 4-door Bonneville, and you know, he was like 90-something years old, and I would call his son. I'd be like, hey, Dick, listen, you got to take the car away from Frank. I said, what are we doing? I can't do it. You do it. I said, I'm not doing it. You take the car away from him. I would say, well, someone else has to pick me up because when he picks me up and he's pulling out of the airport, you know, this thing is a boat, and he's turning, people are honking, he's almost hitting curbs. I'm like, all right, everybody, he's a World War II veteran, I'm sorry. And where do you want to go? Jimmy, go get a hot dog? What do you want to eat? And I'm like, well, Frank, can I drive? No, I got you. It's all right, Jim. You know, so he was just that type of friendship with them, you know, and yeah, it's just.
They really did become our buddies.
Yeah, they did,
You know,
they did.
And they used to drink us under the table.
Yeah.
Trust me, I'm a Scotsman. I know how to drink. With these lads, not a chance. Not a chance. They took us all out to Paris for the premiere. Very fancy, I know. But we all went over with the veterans to Paris. And we were told beforehand by HBO, listen, this whole thing is taken care of, have a good time, and go see the tours, go down the
Imagine
Seine.
that Bill at the bar after all those
I know.
days. I can't
Go
even.
down the Seine, go have a look at the Eiffel Tower, go enjoy Paris.
made
And we're
it
like,
out of the
great.
bar.
None of us left the bar.
None of us left the hotel.
We
None of us
were
left
in
the
that
hotel.
bar and we're all jet lagged, and so we're all still on, you know, U.S. time zones. So we were just staying up all night, and if you dared stand up to go, I'm going to bed, you were called all sorts of things.
If you stand up to go to the restroom,
Yeah.
you were called,
Hey, what's
where
wrong
you
with
going?
What's wrong with you? Yeah.
I'm going to the restroom. All right,
Yeah.
get back here.
I used to
Babe
be
was the worst.
convinced, especially Wild Bill. I used to be convinced that, you know, that booze was going down into his wooden leg, and that's how he was like managing to keep standing, because I was done.
We went up one time at like 2 o'clock in the morning. Like we had to go up. We had to like look all pretty tomorrow for press at like 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. And I remember going up, and I'm like, wow, man, thank God. And I get up, I wake up and I come downstairs, and I'm all fresh and clean, a few hours sleep, a little hungover, and the same corner, same spot they're in.
yeah.
And I'm thinking, did they go all night?
Yeah.
Or they just fell asleep like right there for like 4 hours and just kind of, I didn't dare to ask because I didn't want to judge, but
None of us got to
Jealous.
see Paris, is all I'm saying.
I got to see Paris.
I guess back on the set, what was the hardest episode to film in, or is there an episode that you guys had to keep refilm? What was the hardest one?
I'll let you, I mean, I'm going to assume we all might say the same. Well, Bull, you had episode 4 with you, but 9 was also difficult with Why We Fight and the concentration camp.
Yeah, I think the Why We Fight would be probably as a group the hardest thing, because it was the concentration camp episode. and I'll let Ross talk more about this in a second, but I think that as a company, you know, the stories got very broken up after we got out of boot camp and we started going in with different platoons and different missions and different things, so we were telling different stories. We kind of came together again, and there were a lot of the main cast that we got to all work together and experience this episode together. And I think that day that we first all showed up on the concentration camp and seeing what the production team had done, what the designer had done, and the recreation of this camp, and then to see these background actors that they had hired, which I can't even describe how thin these people were. Some of whom I assume were actually sick, and some who were just incredibly, incredibly thin humans. But in that environment, experiencing that with the smoke and the atmosphere and the makeup that was on these people, it was incredibly hard, incredibly hard. And I think it really, again, if we weren't already 110% in, really brought to life the importance of the story we were telling and how these men experienced it, and things that we learned that we were doing it. The fact that, you know, the assumption that these people had done something, because who could possibly do something like this, something so horrific to these humans? They must be in there for a reason. It was one of those situations where the set and the cast and the background so defined the situation that you were literally like you were stepping into a concentration camp in the 1940s. It was horrendous.
Yeah, it was one of those. It was one of the things that the men wouldn't talk about. So it was very hard for the writers and the producers to really go in and figure out what had gone on in that situation. It was really a subject that a lot of the men really steered away from. And we knew it was coming. You know, we knew the episode was coming. We used to get the scripts maybe a couple of weeks in advance, tops. You know, we'd have a little read through, and we knew what was happening. Jim was very prominent in the episode with me, and we knew it was going to be. And we shot out of sequence the show. So episode 9, we actually shot just over the halfway mark ish. So we'd been grunting for a while now. You know, we'd been in it. We knew who the company were. We knew what we were doing. And when this episode came up, it was a big episode for Liebgott, obviously being of the Jewish faith. The producers and I'm reasonably educated, and so, you know, I knew about the goings-ons. I didn't know everything, and I started doing some deeper research, and the producers asked me if I wanted to go and visit one of the memorial sites in Europe. And at that point, I declined it, and the reason being was I wanted it to be fresh. You know, this was Easy Company seeing it for the first time. I wanted to have that same feeling on camera. They also said, you want to go see the set? And we all declined. We all said no. Let's just wait until day of. And it was a very respectful time. I don't want to say it was just like everybody was just doom and gloom. It was respect, because what they had created in the middle of this forest and what you see on the show is our first time of seeing it. And we had no idea, you know, Easy Company had no idea what they were walking into. And like Mike's saying, they went out and they got these background artists. A lot of them were sick. A lot of them were, you know, extremely emaciated. And they had therapists and doctors on set to make sure that everybody was okay, and they were okay being this vulnerable, you know, playing these roles. They had animatronics brought in. I don't know if you remember, but the old man being carried, you know, as an animatronic. So somebody's, you know, using wires to make him move.
Yeah, it's the first time I've ever used animatronics.
Yeah, first time, yeah.
Gentlemen, I actually have to open up for questions for the cadets with our last 5 minutes here. Any of our future military leaders have questions?
I'm Cadet Eric Huber. As young men filming this show, you guys were obviously still learning who you are as individuals. How formative was this miniseries to who you've become? And even further, in comparison to other roles and how formative they might be, how much more intense was this miniseries?
I'm going to try and keep this as quick as possible. That's a great, great question, and thank you. I would not be the person I am today up here without these men, without, the actors, my brothers. We have our reunion. We have an incredible bond, incredible friendship. We've lived in people's houses. We've gotten married in property. We've done everything. So it's done a lot for me as a man. I was a kid from the streets. So I've grown up around these guys. I look up to them, and I'm there for them anytime they ever need me.
Yeah, I would echo that. I mean, it changed all our lives, I think, because we took it so seriously. We took what this legacy was going to be about. We wanted to honor the men as best as we could, and that's a great weight on our shoulders, And so it really shaped us as young men, like you say. I think Jim and I were the youngest. We were, yeah. Mike was the third youngest.
How old were you guys then?
I was 23. I was 23.
Yeah, I was 24.
Mike was a dad
I
with
was
twins.
the oldest. I was 30,
Mike was 73.
I was 35. I was still 35.
But yeah, it totally shaped us as men, and way more so than any other job. Look, we've all gone on and done 1,000 other movies and TV shows that we're very proud of, And of course, they're a big part of our makeup and a big part of our fabric of who we are. But for me, especially, and I know I speak for them and the rest of the guys, band changed our outlook on the world, and it changed who we were as artists, as men, as family men. So yes.
And you're talking about a lot of young men, so who happen to be actors. There's a lot of ego involved in that sentence, and I've never worked with a more selfless group of men who I respect, who were more than happy to step back and let the focus be on what it was supposed to be on. There was no, we like to say, there's a phrase in our business called competitive acting. And we see it a lot where someone's trying to take focus because they want to be the most important thing. And there was a lot of acknowledging what was the most important thing by everybody in the room, especially and even when it wasn't you, and honoring that and focusing on that, because we all knew we'd have our moment for our vet, as we call them, and we lifted up when it wasn't our time to shine.
Wrap it up, because he's got to cut us off again.
I know, I see
We're
the
gonna make
timer. He's not, I see that timer
All right.
ticking down.
Another question?
You got a minute 45.
Don't worry about that.
Howdy, gentlemen.
Hey, sir.
So you may have touched on this before, but in other military movies where they reenact a certain event, they'll have the former veterans on set with y'all. If they did, what was that experience like for y'all as actors? And did they ever come in and say, no, this was how we did it for specific fighting scenes or specific sequences?
I wasn't there. I think you guys were there.
We had two different situations. One, the day that we did where I come off the tank and get shot and get separated from everybody. We're coming into Carrington. The vets were there. Babe and Bill were there, and there's a half track in the background, and the Germans are coming out of it, and it's coming across, and the tank fires, and it's timed so it blows up, and the guys are jumping out in flames. Bill and Babe excused themselves from set that day. They said, "This is too. You guys are doing a great job," and they left. Tom Hanks directed an episode where they were all celebrating in the barn, drinking, and doing a scene where
They had a great time.
the British paratroopers were all celebrating with the American paratroopers, and they had a fantastic time, and they stayed the entire night. So they were there. They were available to us to have phone calls. We actually, there was the incident with when all the NCOs resigned. That scene was written with, I think, 2 or 3 NCOs in the office, and we were all on phone calls with our vets and talking about that incident, and they're like, "Oh yeah, no, everybody was there. Everybody was there? What do you mean? No, they listed names of who were there. We got on the phone that night with Tony Toe, the producer, and we say, hey, you know, I just talked to Bill and I just talked to Hashi. He said, you know, XYZ were there, this and that. We get on the phone. So the next day, there's two guys supposed to be on the call sheet standing there, you know, in front of Captain. And
Sync.
we say there's Singer.
Sync. Yeah.
And we said, you know, these guys are supposed to be there. So these guys showed up for work. And so all of a sudden the scene changed. And there's now 7 guys standing in the scene. And production was completely open and fluid to that. Like, if you get information and it's going to help make it more realistic or what actually happened, absolutely bring that to us. The more the show went on, the more the vets opened up to us and started saying, you know, I read that and I saw that and I wasn't going to say anything, but, and then they would say what really happened and the whole thing would change as much as it could within the confines of what we'd set up. So we were in contact with them. They were on set. They weren't saying things to be done on set, but they were absolutely giving us information that we would bring to the producers, that changes would be made if necessary.
And whenever the gentleman showed up, it was like the Beatles arrived. I mean,
Yeah.
we were like fanboying, totally over the men. So whenever they were there, it was a big, you know, it was Christmas. It was all of a sudden a big couple of days on set.
Absolutely.
Another question. Waiting for one I have.
No?
Yes, sir.
Or did someone raise their
Somebody
hand?
So some hands, some shy hands eventually started rising.
I'm just a little broken down and old. Took me a while. James, Michael, I'm a fellow New York City boy like yourselves. Retired New York City Fire Department,
Hey, my old man's a
9/11
fireman.
responder,
So,
cancer survivor.
oh, well done.
When Band of Brothers came out, HBO brought some of Easy Company to visit us in the firehouses in Lower Manhattan. And I don't recall if you guys were actually there with them, but I can't tell you what it did for the morale of my brothers and I to meet those brave, brave gentlemen that you guys portrayed. So, you know, I know they're gone now, but if you guys happen to be there or anybody you still have contact with, just, you know, thank them for including us in your tour. And coming from a veteran, I just can't say enough how you guys nailed your parts. It was just incredible. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to jump in there very quickly. My dad's a retired firefighter, so the firehouses are very important to me. I was raised in a firehouse. So thank you for your service. I know exactly what you go through, sir. And one thing I will say is the show premiered right before 9/11. And we'll remember it. We're all together when 9/11 was going on. And there was a moment of our history just going, okay, who cares about a TV show? We've got to focus on the world right now. And HBO almost pulled the plug on the show. They were like, do we continue? Do we not continue? This is, you know, you got to read the room. Is this something that people want to see? And it actually turned the other way, that people needed in the U.S. The pride. They needed to get together. And one of the greatest sources of pride for me ever was, I think it was the New York Times.
Fireman.
Yeah, and they released a full-page article, and it had all the first responders on it. And it said, our band of brothers. And I remember just seeing it, yeah. So, you know, thank you.
That's actually, to a great extent, my question. Insofar as what you said, how this term Band of Brothers has now been applied, it's actually part of our heritage, if you will. So I'm wondering what you think will be the impact, the result, the legacy of this series, which has, I think, touched every life in here, and I think a great many lives across the world. Oh, yeah. This is, I don't want to call it a cult classic because it's far beyond that. But what would you say is the legacy of your efforts and their efforts, this Band of Brothers?
Well, you got the young men and women in here today. There's a whole new generation of young men and women watching Band of Brothers. 20-something years later, it's one of the top shows on Netflix again. I mean, that's not exactly to your question, but that's the power of the show and the impact of the show. I mean, it means so much to me when, 9, 10-year-old kid comes up to me and kind of goes, "I love you in Band of Brothers." I'm like, what? How's that, So, for me, I think it's now translating into a whole new generation. And I think it's important to celebrate the American soldier and keep these stories alive. And we're a small part of that, and we're very proud of that.
I'm sure I speak for everyone when I thank you very much for your work, your dedication, and your perseverance in continuing the legacy of the Band of Brothers. For we all are indeed a Band of
That's
Brothers.
right.
Thank you very
It
much.
is absolutely our honor. Thank you.